Hi everyone, I'm Dr. Z. I'm a clinical psychologist specializing in transgender care. Welcome to my channel. Welcome to also the first video of what is going to be in, so far looks like 7 videos here I outlined for you for partners of anybody who identifies as transgender. This is also a great and very important series for anybody who identifies as transgender and who is in a relationship, because there's so much here that not just for partners alone, but this is actually, the whole series is made for couples in general. Again, this is for anybody who is in a relationship of any kind, whether it is domestic partnership, whether it is a long-term marriage, whether it is a recently new relationship, whichever way you define your relationship with another person. This is a great series for you to watch, especially if that individual is trans-identified and recently has come out to you, or maybe not so recently. Each one of the videos can be standalone videos, or it could be videos in a series. Each one is going to have tips. Each one is going to have information to help you understand better how you feel, and most importantly, what is really happening in a relationship, how the dynamics changes. To start off this series, I want to first turn the lens on you partners, those who are watching, who find themselves in a relationship, again, however you define it, with a person who identifies as a transgender. I'm assuming because you're watching it, is perhaps because recently your partner has probably came out to you and expressed to you that they identify as transgender. Now, what I want to acknowledge first and foremost is that you as partners also have your own feelings. You also have your own sense of agency, and you also have your own capacity to make decisions. I think this is very important to emphasize, because for me as a psychologist, when I work with couples, I always emphasize the significance and the importance of you having an agency and of you having your feelings. You see, I am not a typical, I would say, well, not a common therapist, especially not a common therapist that works with couples, who in this particular scenario tends to fully take 100% support of a trans individual. Even though I specialize exclusively in transgender care, I understand that it is very difficult and very challenging to be in a relationship with a person you thought to be a one particular gender expression and identity, and then suddenly they come out to you, and a lot of feelings can come along with that. I always tell my clients that for me personally, I've been married to a male-identified individuals for 16 years. And for me personally, even for somebody who specializes in this, if my husband came out to me and said he identifies as transgender, I honestly can't tell you how I'd feel. I know probably I most likely will be supportive, but whether I will decide that I can still stay in this marriage, I can't even give you an answer for that. And I want to acknowledge that. I just want to acknowledge that this is difficult, this is challenging, this can feel like a curveball. And a lot of times it does feel like a rock has been literally pulled from underneath your feet. And that can be very hard to orient yourself. It can be very hard to regain your balance. It can be very hard to make sort of things. Transgender identity and transition in particular, and gender dysphoria at large, are one of those things that very deeply affect individuals' sense of who they are, and very deeply affect a lot of other aspects of who they are. So I also completely understand that in a relationships, it's not just one of those things that you married and you stick, or you're together without being married and you have to stick it out until the end. A lot of times we are choosing our partners, especially because of their gender identity and gender expression, because that has a lot to do with how we see ourselves, with who we're attracted to. It has a lot to do with our sexuality. So there's a lot that goes into gender in a scope of relationship. There's some people who can be attracted to people regardless of gender, and that's great. But by far, for majority of people, we do tend to be drawn to partners of a particular gender. That tends to be really important to a lot of us. So I want to emphasize that, and I want to start off saying that I have complete understanding and empathy of where you find yourself at. I'm not taking a side that because you're with a partner who decided to transition and has expressed to you that they've been struggling with gender dysphoria for, especially if they're older, they'd be struggling with gender dysphoria for a number of years. I'm not of an opinion that because they expressed all of this to you, you have to 100% stick to the relationship. I'm of an opinion that you have to decide what's best for you. And I'm going to show all of you through the videos how to best make the decision without rushing into things, without damaging things further, without really making decisions that you may regret. I'm going to help you to consider all of those factors, because all of those factors are going to play a big role, especially if a lot of you have already families, a lot of you have already children. So it's going to be really, really important. But I want you to keep in mind that I think you have a sense of agency. I think you have a sense of independence. I think you have a sense of choice. And that's really, really important for me to acknowledge here and for me to tell you so that you know that as well. A lot of times we make analogy of gender dysphoria being analogous to a medical illness such as cancer. I make that analogy a lot myself. And while they are very similar in the sense that a person is struggling with a medical condition and thus oftentimes needs treatment such as transition to benefit from it, the difference with the cancer is when a person goes through treatment, in the end, they're still the same gender. This dysphoria and transition, specifically when a person transitions, they are gender-wise presenting and expressing themselves in a different gender. And so while it would be great if you could support and be with your partners, if in the end you also turn out that you just absolutely cannot be with that particular gender, if it's not for you, I want you to also be able to acknowledge the decision and make the decision for you. So having said that, let me also start off the series by saying that you as a partner are going to have a lot of feelings. You're going to have a lot of feelings, and the trans partner who is going to come out or has come out already to you has also a lot of feelings. Let's remember going into the series that you're both human beings. As human beings, you both have been together for, I don't know, what is it for you? Have you been together months? Have you been together a year? Have some of you been together 5, 10, 20, 30, 40 years together? Some of you have children. So you've been together for a long, long time. This is somebody who you closely walked this life with. Let's acknowledge some empathy, some compassion when people express something as challenging as gender dysphoria. I promise you, the older your partner is, the longer they most likely have been struggling with gender dysphoria. And the longer they've been struggling with gender dysphoria, the harder it has been for them to really express it and to share that with anybody. And you could be the first person they ever share that with. And it could be very, very challenging for them to be this honest and this authentic. And it's equally as hard for them. And I promise you that they have most likely, the older they are, they have probably done a lot of things trying to cope and trying to get rid of gender dysphoria so that they don't end up hurting you and they end up hurting, so they don't end up hurting people around you. This is not something people do on purpose. Gender dysphoria is not something that adults, especially older adults, just whip out because they're going through some kind of age crisis that suddenly they decide to do because life is unbearable for some reason or not. This is something that has been happening with a lot of adults, most likely since they were little. This is something that people have been struggling with over the years. So this is not something that your partners just suddenly come up with because it's fun and interesting and it's culturally right now inundated in our society. No, they probably, before they even came out to you, they have probably spent nights and days and months thinking about how to get themselves rid of gender dysphoria. And you as a partner may have even sensed a sense of distancing from them, a sense of detachment from them. So this is just, let's acknowledge that this is not easy for both of you. It's not easy for you as somebody on receiving end to hear such disclosure within your relationship. And like I said, in the second part of the video, I will explain an area of feelings you can feel. And I know that you feel a lot of things. And I know that a lot of you watching have felt a lot of things. From betrayal to hurt to feeling lied to. There's a lot of things you felt. Your partners also felt a lot of things. These things happen. It is not anybody's fault. It's not your fault. You didn't fail your partners in any shape or form. And it's not your partner's fault. They have not failed you. Gender dysphoria is one of the things that if you truly have it, you have it. And it's just not going to go away by itself. At least in my experience, I have yet to see it in adults who just suddenly vanish and disappear. And so let's just remind ourselves that this is not something that people do on purpose. Nobody's trying to hurt anybody. This is something that people just have to find a way to work through. A lot of people that I see, a lot of couples do find a way to work through, and then a lot of couples don't find a way to work through. And I'll point out the reasons that benefits, that reasons that tend to be kind of a positive green flags that indicate how relationship will survive, and I'll point out some things that may indicate relationship may not make it, and also talk with you on acceptance and acknowledging when that does happen. So stick around. This is going to be, so far it looks like I have outlined here in my post-it a 7-part video. It is going to go through it's going to go through the 6 actually it's going to go through 5 stages, similar to 5 stages of grief, but they're named differently. If you're familiar with 5 stages of grief and loss, such as denial, anger, bargaining, depression, and acceptance, it's somewhat similar, named very differently. And then there's going to be a summary video on discussing what to do now, how to move forward. Again, you can watch the videos by itself, or you can watch them in sequence. You're going to find yourself to be either in one particular stage right now in your relationships, or you're going to find yourself in multiple stages. You're going to find yourself sometimes jumping around through different stages. There's no linear progression, so keep that in mind. So having said that, and having acknowledged that you do have a sense of agency as a party, you do have a voice, you do have a choice, you do have capacity to exercise things for yourself, even though those choices may be very, very difficult for you, even though those choices may arise out of your desire not to make those choices, you still have them, and they are there for you on the table. I just want you to keep that in mind. So having said that, let's move on to part of our video. If you're watching this, and if your partners especially, comment below. Let me know how you feel. Let me know whether you also recognize that this is nobody's fault, or maybe you're in a stage right now where you feel a lot of anger and you do feel like it's your partner's fault. This is a place and a platform where you absolutely can share those feelings, as long as they're not overly negative and hateful language. If you share your feelings in a capacity that is appropriate, you're welcome to share how you feel. It's completely appropriate to do it on this platform. And if you're also trans partners, share below, how do you feel? Do you feel like your partners have a sense of agency? Do you feel like they do have a right to exercise their choice? Comment below so we can engage in a dialogue, and I'll talk to you all in the next video. Bye.